Hello, everybody. Welcome to another market update. I know I've updated it recently, but I want to see some of the charts as well. Since we are in a choppy range, perhaps some the checks on the development and see how these oscillators strategy works. It's a good idea. So far, I've seen some people drawing this trend line. It's in some ways that apparently BTC has broken out. I don't see that, at least with the trailer that I set up here, which by the way is acting perfectly as a resistance so far. You know that I prefer and I favor the horizontal structures. I think diagonals are just some kind of confluence or reinforcement to the main idea, but it's not my main idea itself. So we can see it's been rejecting since Saturday, so it still has some work to do here. But apparently, the good news is BTC is holding 84k, which is, as I said a few times, the first step, the first key level to reclaim. Right? We hold it here. We had the scam pump here. We lost it. Couldn't hold it. Became a little bit of resistance here, and now we are fighting to get it back after this potential double bottom and the bullish divergence that might signal the trend reversal like it did in summer. However, I'm a little bit suspicious about this potential. I mean, I'm not going to be obsessive with these divergences, but it is true that it's been developing for quite some time, and price still needs to make a high to invalidate this. Otherwise, this could mean 84 drops after failing to break the resistance, and if it falls, perhaps we lose the MA, and that would open clearly the door to test the lows again, and that is something that I wouldn't like to see. And I mentioned these potential divergence and its implications because when we printed this bullish one here in summer, right, which was hinting a potential again double bottom and a reversal after this continuous downtrend, both in RSI and price, right? Here we see the downtrend and it's changed here. As I've said a few times, with our current situation as well, we have this downtrend, and then with this bullish divergence, the RSI trend started changing completely and price was reflecting as well. Here we have the same thing. There is divergence on the daily building for from November to January, 2 months, right? We have plenty of time to exit here, but it's difficult when you see price is still going up, right? So we have this downtrend and now the reversal, right? So we need to see price climbing back up to invalidate this potential divergence, right? And confirm that we are in a new leg up. It needs to be confirmed by price. I want to see it attack 88 soonish. I don't want it to extend too much. Anyway, the FMOC meeting is and it's on the 7th of May, I think. So we are a few weeks from it. I think price should start moving soon. Otherwise, it could compress a lot and just wait for the FMOC trigger to choose a side. But I think structure is normally telling what's next before any kind of narratives or news. So first of all, we need to break this trend line here, which would make a higher high. And perhaps we could say that we are back like we did here, right? Higher high, higher low. And we continue healthily without divergences. Okay, this chart might look a little bit busy, so to speak, right? Because I posted that I've been taking a look at this whole cycle. I think it's clearly so far a weekly cycle in the sense of we haven't had a crazy extended runs. It's more like consolidations, breaks, consolidations, and breaks. It's interesting if we just analyze this cycle. Okay, we have the first sign of exhaustion and overheating here. By the way, the RSI level, if you can see in the daily, is pretty much consistent around 87, above 88, 85, more or less. So we have the breakout from the bottom, which, by the way, we could say this price was kind of flat while strength was building. This is the daily, but we can see that even clearer on the weekly or the monthly. We have already seen that. I'm not gonna get into that again. So then we had these bearish divergence, right? Another chopping period, flat divergence, strength from oversold levels. We can see it, right? The next huge overheated level, it was around 35, and this was again losing strength right into the ETF launch, right? So okay, sell the news event, yes, but we had some signs that it was losing strength, right? The next one, we have like a double top on RSI here on March. Again, another kind of distribution range while losing strength. So far, this is quite textbook. We can also see the levels that it retests, pretty much the previous high, right? Here, again, front running the previous high, marking double top. This chop ends with a bullish divergence, new impulsive leg, press overheating signs, various divergence to confirm. This doesn't mean it's always going to happen like this. Of course, we can just reach an overheated level without any divergence and just roll over, right? It also depends on the strength and the on the power of the new leg. For example, if it's a kind of a blow off top move, you don't really need any kind of divergence, right? So I guess all this is why I believe that the lows are in. I'm gonna risk and say that I've been saying this since perhaps here we had this lower low would reinforce the bullish divergence. So that's what made me believe that 100% we're the lows are behind, but you never know. We could just test again, although I believe it's 100% in. That's just my call and my opinion. And I also say that because the gold chart, the gold BTC chart, is again printing various divergences. The second one is this cycle. First, we have this divergence, right, which marked the bear market bottom for BTC, right? And it signaled that perhaps it was time for BTC to outperform gold, right? Then we have the first hidden divergence, which normally signal trend continuation. It was here, right? Look at this was the bottom for gold against BTC, the top in March, right? For BTC, oversold levels from gold against BTC, and then we printed out various divergence, which was the September low for gold, for BTC, right? And the start of the new leg for BTC. Again, bottom here for gold, bullish divergence building. This is all the weekly oversold levels, right? It was the top for BTC. BTC was showing weakness in mid-December, right? Extended until January, right? Mid-December, around here, extended until January, which was when gold, started to move back up. Now it's reached again overheated levels. This could extend for a while. It doesn't mean it has to be immediate. And another bearish divergence will suggest trend continuation, which means BTC outperforming gold again, which aligns with BTC forming this bullish divergence like in summer. Same way it was weak here and gold started running here, right? December. I think this is so far textbook action, price action, right, and correlation. So, and I also want to show this post by Nick, right, between the correlation and between BTC and gold, right, the chart that I just showed, together with the money supply. So we can see that gold runs when um, money supply is increasing, right? So, like in this case, the last leg we have in Q4, money supply has been tightening, and so has the relation between BTC and gold. I mean, gold is rising up amid confusion and uncertainty with all this tariff stuff. And apparently, this chart suggests that now it's time for BTC to outperform again, which aligns with this gold BTC chart. And if we take a look at the gold chart itself, we can see something very interesting. This is the monthly. I'm not going to get into any more details, but we can see this huge range gold was in since 2020, right? With a little fake out here. This was the top at 83, 84 RSI back in 2020, right? This was the uncertainty, the rush in the uncertainty with the COVID peaked here in August. What did BTC do later, right? It ran hard. So if you can see, it ran hard until April. Gold was found its bottom here, started to range up until here, November 2022. So once the range broke to the upside, we have this kind of blow off top move. This is what I would say a blow off top move, and the RSI is now even crossing this 84 level, right? Stock RSI still has to reflect it. Perhaps this is the first there's divergence on the monthly, with still has no very signs, but this is a huge move. So I don't think it is the time for gold to keep outperforming for much longer. So all these aligns with BTC running next. How long will it take? We don't know, but it looks like it could be a few weeks to see a decisive move, at least in price action, right? And I don't want to be or to sound like a blind bull, right? I want to show everything I see. And back in mid-February, I posted that bears could see this weekly cycle chart and say, hey, this is 2021 again. And it certainly looked like that. And in fact, it was confirmed later, right? Here, we had this kind of distribution while the weekly was not as overheated, but it was overheated and losing strength. And we have the same kind of distribution while losing strength below the MA, right? This is the whole cycle from 2021, 2025, right? The whole top bear market, a new run. And if we open that chart now, we can clearly see I said the monthly chart wasn't still overheated. This is not the top, and I still maintain that. If support holds, we are good. This support was 90k approximately, and it didn't hold, as we can see here. It broke down, right? This is the update. The good thing is more similarities with this price action, both bearishly and bullishly. It's the weekly RSI levels that we BTC found support here in summer, and this whole cycle, by the way. We said if we are in a bull run, it should bounce, and it did so far. Interestingly, if we switch to the monthly, the RSI level is the same. 2021, August 24, and pretty much now. More confluence, right? We could say there's still this charts still look good for continuation. So why not? Until we see invalidation, we shouldn't just give up on this idea of a new leg, right? I also wanted to take a look at USDT, which is my main chart this cycle. I haven't really paid attention to this for quite some time. And this is a chart that I just drew some time ago with this interrogation here, because I posted this was a rejection and I didn't know what would happen here, right? And the development shows that it's been perhaps another deviation. And there is something interesting that I just found today. Here, when we found this big deviation from this bigger range, there was a various divergence, right? We marked the top for USDT and the bottom for BTC from August to September 2024, last summer. And somehow it seems that we are building the same kind of divergence from February to April now. The confirmation would be this, that apparently is acting as a resistance now. This should act as resistance as well, so we could test 5% again, and potentially my first target, which is 4.5, which is pretty much the median range of this bigger range. So it's not looking bad. If we go to the weekly, there are no relevant signs, but the candles reflect that this deviation and this potential rejection confirms that it is indeed a deviation, right? Pretty much like here, right? It broke, it tried, but this candle printed the deviation, and it ran hard this fourth Q4 in 2024. It was below the EMA, still far from it now. So perhaps there's still some more chop to come before that. Lastly, I want to see the 200 moving average, right? The daily in this case. And we can see that it keeps rejecting, right? But price is compressing until we are decisively above the 200, right? For example, this is back in 2023. Until we are above them both, we won't see a new leg, right? This is the top in spring 24. We started chopping around it. We held the reclaimed the trend. We held the bottom range, and then we broke. We didn't revisit it until now, right? So first we have this kind of perhaps premature move, which was a scam pump. We've been struggling to reclaim it, but here we are again, right? We need to break and be above 87,700, which is pretty much reclaiming 88, as we have said. If we switch to the 4-hour, however, it's still holding, but this is something I don't want to see. This was before the bigger drop that ended in this double bottom, but this was around all these tariff narratives, all these surprises with the huge percentage to China and to every country. And so far we're still above both trends, right? The simple and the exponential. Here we started toying with being between them, which is something I don't really like. It could sign weakness or just perhaps be noise. It's impossible to tell, right? Because here we toyed here again, we failed to recapture, we lost it, and perhaps we could think it was over. So this is why we have to rely on other indicators. This is just one more confluence point, right, to see if we are really back or not. So the 4-hour has to be reclaimed. So far it's still holding, and then we need the daily, the 200. Then we could say, okay, we're back. So this could coincide with the reclaiming 88 and printing this higher high. So far, so good, but still in the cautious territory. I wouldn't like to see, and I wouldn't discard any last week to grab liquidity and take more people out of the market. So I would be cautious. And lastly, BDC dominance, which is something that ad holders are paying attention to. These are all the levels that I drew back, I think it was a few months ago, right? With all the small levels that BDC has been building, right? And so far, we could say that this is the kind of level. This was support back in 2020, resistance back in February, right? So far, it's pretty much acting as resistance, although it's battling it. Still haven't retested this week, although it's close to doing that. We still have these recent weekly divergence, right? If we remove this all and we use some Fibonacci, some reference from this top to the bottom of this market, we can see that it was rejected this key level, right? And it's trying to test it again while showing weakness. So that might be relevant. Perhaps we have some deviations and last push here, but this level together with this weakness seems relevant. If we switch to the daily, I'm going to remove this to make it clear. I mentioned yesterday that perhaps losing this EMA could bring some relief because this divergence was building so far, and it seems that we could break below this. Again, doesn't mean the new leg starts, but perhaps in fact when it broke recently, it went just from 63.78 to like a 0.4% drop. That's nothing, but it could also signal the start of a true reversal, right? It has to start somewhere. Anyway, I think it's overheated. If we switch finally to the monthly, we can see the RSI as at the highest it has ever been. Still no divergences here. We could argue that the stock RSI perhaps. Anyway, this is not the kind of move that's starting or that could really go high. I don't really think the market today looks like it's built or shaped to test such high levels like 71%. That would mean alts get destroyed, in my opinion. I don't see BDC going so far up while dominance goes as well, and just alts wouldn't be destroyed. So this is not a possibility I'm thinking of. Perhaps 64 plus something is the top. And as we can see here, when we had the drop from October to November, right, which was pretty much December, the top for the altcoins, we had this drop from 60 to 54, and we had very good runs for some alts. All BDC dominance did was a retest, so people were claiming that the old season was already starting. I think that for that, well, it's not what I think, it's what I see. You have to wait for these to break, like it did in 2021, right? It doesn't mean we will have this huge move, right? Doesn't mean that. But as we have said several times, once the MA is broken either to the upside or the downside, price accelerates, right? The moment BTCD reclaimed and held this trend line, this was the dead cat bounce in the 2022 bear market, this ensured that this was a new cycle led by BTC. And in the higher time frame, until this MA is broken, we shouldn't say that alts are really going to run. Perhaps some spurs here and there, but not a full broad old season like people expect. So let's see how this all develops. I don't want BTC to spend much time here and keep printing these wicks. I wanted to finally break this. It would be great if it happened this week, even if we come back to retest 84 again, but after breaking this. In any case, again, bottoms look scary, looks confusing. It's not a safe bet, otherwise everyone would catch the whole move, or pretty much the whole move, and the cycles wouldn't exist, right? So let's see how it all develops. I think it is all shaping for BTC to outperform gold again, perhaps some rotation. It makes sense for people to buy gold now with all this uncertainty, but the moment that we have some news with some clarity about tariffs, of even some negotiation, we could say that people might see that as a risk on signal again, and then we could say, okay, charts were screaming that BTC was getting ready and that gold was overextended. If that rotation happens, right, it will all look obvious in hindsight. But the thing is to position ourselves perhaps before that, and that depends on your risk tolerance, right? So let's see how it all develops. Perhaps we will chop probably until the FOMC meeting on the 7th of May. Perhaps a few more weeks of chop. But the thing is, I believe we're in a new trend. The lows are in, and we have to be patient with altcoins. Imagine buying here in, let me just switch to the week just for a second, right? 2020, back here, COVID, doom posting everywhere. It was over. BTC was just a scam. It doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. Other people would say that it was once in a lifetime opportunity to buy, and then you spend the whole freaking year, right? May, September, pretty much doing nothing. Altcoins even dropping here in December in December, BTC rising, altcoins dropping right before the parabolic move. Does it have to happen again? No, but in hindsight, would you rather wait a few more months or weeks, even though it's been quite some time for what holders this cycle? I know I'm in that crew as well. But if we eventually capture the big move, does it really matter if we had to wait 1 week or 1 year? It's tough, but markets can multiply tremendously in just a few weeks. So I think the idea is to stick to charts, not to doom posting or bull posting, hopium sellers or whatever. Things would be much easier. I have somehow, just by playing these oscillators, you had some time to buy or to sell, even though if it's not the perfect move. You keep compounding, and that's the key to investing, in my opinion. So let's see how it all evolves, and I'll catch you later. Bye.